I just look at the questions because we still have two questions from before that were not addressed. And for the participants, feel free to type questions, especially for lore. But until then, I will go back to the question of Peter Rayner from Wells, and he raised the question if the provision of victim services would make a society less punitive. He was involved in the UK Victim Support Service in the 80s, and they hoped that this will happen, but he would be interested in the views of Levent or any other speaker on this. So Lev, would you like to answer this?
Thank you. I put something in the chat. I mean, fundamentally what I was saying was I think it's difficult to make the comparison between victim support and societal attitudes, because there are so many different drivers towards societal attitudes. And, you know, we're seeing huge changes now, a lot more extremism, hate, discrimination coming out. And I don't think victim support is going to influence that. And I remember working in the Cabinet Office in the UK, and the struggle we had to change a positive perception of the EU because of the media reporting. So the media reporting in the UK has a huge influence, I think, on societal attitudes. But what I did say was that the more that you can meet the broad needs, those 5 needs of victims, I think the more that you even out the demand and focus on any particular one. So if victims are not having their need for support, for recognition, for compensation met, then they will turn to justice, to punitive measures, and demand will focus in that area. So I think that's one aspect to it, but I think also the more that victims have access to support, have access to an understanding of what's impacted them and how to move forward, then again, that can influence their focus on a solution oriented towards punishment. That's not to say that it removes it, and I think it's perfectly legitimate to seek justice, to seek detention as well, within a person's perception, but they have to understand why they're seeking that. And I think the more that we help people to understand what are the motivations behind justice, punishment, and how they help to achieve certain goals, or don't help to achieve certain goals, then I think that will help change society's perceptions. Victim support gives access to a lot of that knowledge and helps sort of, I think, balance out different needs.
Thank you, Lev, for your answer. And I think the next question might be also something you may answer. That comes from Kosovo, from Sami Hajru Lahu. Sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly. And it's raising the issue about motivational interviewing that they use in the probation service in Kosovo with great success. But there is a question if there are any ways or any other techniques that besides motivational interviewing that can be used, and also if this technique would work well for the clients of victims of crime.
So I'm not a therapist or a psychologist or an expert in any of these areas as well, but for me, the starting point, and perhaps sometimes a failing across the board within victimization and other areas, is to focus on a therapy as a solution rather than tools. So motivational interviewing is one tool in a whole range of tools. And the idea is that when you're with a victim or with an offender, you're again doing that needs assessment and that risk assessment. You're trying to understand what is the tool which will work best with this person. And I mentioned, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy and motivational interviewing it sort of springs from and is connected to the same thinking. And what you're really trying to work out, first of all, is the why. What are the belief systems and cognitive distortions which drive a person to think in a certain way and act in a certain way? And then what you need to do, and that's part of what motivational interviewing does, is you're trying to help this person to decide whether they want to change and then help them move to that point of changing. And that's fundamental, but so motivational interviewing is one way of doing that. There are a whole range of multiple approaches, but when you hit an obstacle to achieving that change, then you need to look at different kinds of solutions. And there are hundreds of tools out there which do this. And I think it's just about not necessarily going, I'm doing motivational interviewing, or I'm doing CBT, or I'm an EMDR, whatever may be the approach. It's looking at what is the blockage with this person. What kind of tool can I use to address that kind of issue? And you know, effective communication skills, empathy, training, all of those are really helpful ways of addressing that particular issue, I think.
Thank you. And if I may add, because also we work with restorative justice, but motivational interviewing has also some similarities with the way restorative practices work. I think the element of empowering the client, finding their own strengths and solutions it can be an important element in a long-term positive change. But I'm not here to be an expert on this topic, of course. I don't see any more questions, and I think also our time is almost up. Just important for all participants that there are a lot of important and useful links in the chat posted by Alena and Laure and or other panelists. So look at those. And also the recording of this webinar will be available on the organization's website soon. Now I don't have more to do than to thank my colleague Laura Hein for her help with from the background to moderate this webinar, and give the floor to Gustav Stalving for the closing words.
Thank you so much, Edith. Well, I will try to keep this short as lunch is approaching, but I really want to thank you for a mind-blowing seminar. I really think that the challenge that Lev was mentioning in the beginning to sort of merging these topics together was really successful exercise, I must say, and very eye-opening, I must say. 15 years back, when I was working in prisons and probations in Sweden, I got to know lots of drug addicts which started their addiction in, let's say, the 70s. And most of them, the heavy drug addicts using heroin, they told me that they took their first shot of heroin in prison. And that was sort of a game changer to me, realizing that sort of being in detention is being imposed an unnatural environment that could make you take steps that you maybe never would have taken if you weren't there. And that has sort of been guiding me through my professional life since then. And I would say that protecting victims' rights, as described today, is overlapping a lot with protecting human rights in general. And it gets even more obvious when you sort of apply this perspective on persons in detention. So this is like a overarching reflection from me, and I won't keep you longer. But I will want to take the time to thank Lev, Alena, and Laura so much for very interesting presentations, and to actually take on the challenge to merge these different perspectives. I would also like to thank Anton Arabadchev from Europris for his technical support to make this webinar possible. And also, of course, the participants. I appreciate that you've all been active and responsive in the chat and the Q&A. As Edith said, the recordings and presentations will be available on the website. And also, finally, I would like to encourage you to stay updated by signing up for the newsletters of Europris, EFRJ, and Cjpe on our websites, and also follow us on social media. And with that, I would like to close the webinar and wish you a good day.